First, there was nothing. And then, there was something. Out of sheerest emptiness, creativity emerged.
What you need to remember is that creativity is not a separate faculty that some people have and others don't. The truth is, we all have different creative capabilities. Because you see, creativity is a function of intelligence. And so creativity is possible in any activity which actively engages human intelligence.
Human?
Bad choice of words.
Well, that's okay. It's a species thing. I'm used to it. But look, Sir Ken, you know, I really appreciate this pep talk and all, but I'm just not sure I'm ready to give a talk at TED.
Of course you are.
Huh? But they want me to talk about creativity. And that's your field. You're the expert, and me? Well, I'm just your average, everyday talking frog.
Kermit,
No?
listen to me. At TED, each speaker brings their own experience.
They do?
Their own unique idea worth sharing. So you are going to TED.
I am?
And you are going to do a fantastic job.
You think?
Yes, you are. And do you know why? Because being creative is who you are. It's the thing that keeps you going.
Well, yeah, I guess it is.
And if that plane to TED leaves the ground and you're not on it, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And for the rest of your life.
You know, I think you're absolutely right. Yes. Watch out, Ted. Here I come. Hang on a minute. Was that last thing you said from Casablanca?
Yes.
You know, Sir Ken, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Thank you.
Thank you. Please welcome my dear friend and the most creative amphibian I have ever met. And actually, I've met quite a few. Ladies and gentlemen, Kermit the Frog.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all. Oh, thank you so much. Wow. You know, I have to tell you guys, it is great to be back in Mississippi. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We are there. And I got to tell you, you know, I have deep roots here, or as we frogs like to say, knee-deep roots. See, that's a frog joke. Okay, note to Fozzie Bear, opening joke did not work. Anyway, listen, you know, I grew up in a swamp not far from the Capri Theater here, which back in those days had a surprising number of amphibian films, like Star Wars, and Lawrence of Amphibia, and this one, Who's Afraid of Virginia Ham? Yes. You know, in fact, when I was a tadpole, it was in this very theater that I lost my, my tail. Yeah. And I'm betting I'm not the only one here today who lost his tail in a movie theater either. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's why they call that little place down the street the Pig and Pint. A pig, a pint, and the rest is history. Yeah. Yep, lots of life-changing events happen here at the Capri. Anyhow, before we explore all the important creative insights you would expect to hear from a talking frog, I want to say a very special thank you to Sir Ken Robinson for being such a good friend and creative mentor. And of course, by creative mentor, I mean that for today's presentation, I have borrowed as many of his ideas as possible without getting sued for plagiarism. So thank you, Sir Ken. And now it's time to address the most fundamental of all questions. Why are we here? Now, I mean, I know some of us are here because somebody paid for our flight and our ticket. And to those people, I say good for you, but I'm talking about the big picture. Why are we as humans and non-humans here on this planet? And what are we supposed to do until it's time to, I don't know, move on to the fertile ground or whatever lies beyond this realm? Well, I got to tell you folks, to tell you the truth, I don't know why we're here. But a friend of mine who also grew up around here said that his ambition was to be one of the people who made a difference in this world and to leave this world a little better for his having been here. That friend, that was a guy named Jim Henson. Yep. And if I say so myself, he certainly did leave this a better place for having been here, you know, because for Jim, creativity was all about making us take a fresh look at the world by showing us from, you know, like some unusual perspective, you know? I mean, for instance, think about it. What's happening right now? You're all sitting here listening to me, a talking amphibian. That alone is a rather radical act of creativity. It's what I like to call a conspiracy of craziness. Yep, that's it, folks. We've all decided to accept the premise, suspend our disbelief, and just enjoy the ride. To me, that conspiracy of craziness and that freedom of thought, well, that's what being creative is all about. And it's a pretty neat thing, this creativity thing. You don't have to be a Hollywood frog or even date a pig to make it happen. Lucky you. You know, and the best part is anyone can be creative, and matter of fact, we all create every single day. And I actually mean that literally, you know. We literally create every single day for ourselves through our cultural perspectives and our belief systems. By manifesting our particular view of the world, we actually create our world with every thought. Now don't take my word for this. As Sir Ken said, creativity is possible in any activity which actively engages human or non-human intelligence. And I'm not, you know, I just want you to know that I am not a newcomer to this creative thinking stuff. Here's some footage we unearthed of me with an associate. Ooh, uh-oh, yikes, wrong footage. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that would be the other footage that we unearthed of me with an associate at one of the early TED conferences. Let me see if I can, oh, there we go.
It says here that, and draw the X. Metaphor. 5.
Hey, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm taking a course in visual thinking. It teaches you how to visualize your thoughts. Watch. Q. See that?
Man, you're just a beginner. I'm an old hand at this stuff. Watch.
Hey, a real watch.
With moving parts, no less.
Yeah. The guy with the glasses, you people probably don't know this, but that's actually Ted. Yeah. Capital T, capital E, capital D. But you know, I got to tell you, if you think it's not easy being green, try being black and white. Sucks the rainbow connection right out of you. But you know, even in those early days, I was fascinated by the creative impulse and how to get started. And I realized that being creative is a lot like living in the swamp. First and foremost, you've got to stay alive. You need to avoid being eaten by alligators or attacked by snakes or even pigs. In other words, you need to make a living, and you got to feed and clothe yourself and your family. And whether you're in a Mississippi swamp or, I don't know, maybe Midtown Manhattan or Silicon Valley, it can seem easier and safer to avoid risk than to take creative chances and let your mind run free. We're also worried about making a living and not getting devoured by alligators or competitors that we kind of start believing that there's no time for being creative. Creativity, we think, is for artists. Imagination and inspiration, well, those are just words we use around kids. But for grown-ups, well, those are just nice words in some corporate mission statement. Our real job is to make a living. Well, folks, I am here to say that is wrong, or at least self-deceptive, you know? Because I believe creativity is an inherent part of everyone. To again quote Sir Ken, creativity is the true engine of our economy. It's the very essence of invention and innovation. And I believe that's true. And when you find that place in your life to be creative, you make the world a better place to live in. So, now that I have declared that everyone is in fact creative, where do you start to tap into this creativity? And the answer is anywhere. Now, Michelangelo, for instance, started with a block of marble, and he famously said, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set it free." But you know, some people start with test tubes and beakers, or they come up with a better way to mop the floor, or a more effective way to achieve flight, even on a motorcycle. Some people work in a kitchen, some people work in politics, and others, well, they do as little as possible and figure out a way to get paid for it. In other words, there are as many ways to be creative as there are Muppets. And believe you me, there are a lot of Muppets. And I don't know, I got to meet payroll every week. But to get started, sometimes you have to take a chance. You know, Michelangelo chipped away at a lot of stone before he found his angel. And Albert Einstein, well, he scribbled a lot of numbers before he came up with his theory of relativity. And of course, then there's Ron Popeil. He burned tons of chickens before he could set it and forget it with that rotisserie oven right there. Yes. But all of those people had one thing in common, folks. They didn't wait to know where they were going before they started their journey. They each had what Jim Henson liked to call ridiculous optimism. Yep, that's right. Without that, we would not even have this amazing world we live in. And heck, without that, without ridiculous optimism, there's a good chance none of us would be here today. I mean, let's face it, if our mothers weren't ridiculously optimistic, they probably wouldn't have gone out on that second date with our fathers. As the saying goes, if necessity is the mother of invention, then creativity is the father. Which means, on some cosmic level, we are all the children of necessity and creativity. Ooh, that made my head hurt. If you guys could just, excuse me just a sec. Love iced tea. Nice. Excuse me. Wow, that was really good. Where were we? Excuse me. Oh, right, passion. So, passion, let's see here. Not that kind of passion. No, I mean the passion to do something creative because you can't not do it. That's the most important thing to me. Not doing it is not an option. Right? Can I get an amen? Amen. Thank you, folks. That's fun. Oh, that's fun. Now I know why they do that. Yeah. I mean, sure, we all have to earn a living, but we also shouldn't be afraid to wander off down the trail of creative risk-taking once in a while and explore a whole different way of thinking and living and doing. Now, the great 20th century surrealist Salvador Dali, who incidentally looks a lot like a good friend of mine, Boomerang Fish Thrower New Zealand, he said, "Have no fear of perfection, you will never reach it." So the point of that is to never worry about failure, because it's going to happen. But that's okay. Go ahead and take chances. And you might just find that what feels like failure isn't failure at all. It's what inspires you to dream even bigger. So be thankful for the good and the not so good, you know? It's just part of getting better at the things you do and at being you. I mean, discipline and focus is important, but so is controlled and inspired chaos. And we need to encourage each other to take chances and sometimes fail. And yes, our critics can be harsh and relentless.
That was terrible! Horrendous! I'm offended! I'm appalled!
Yeah. But it's chaos mixed with failure and all kinds of inspiration and perseverance that raised me up out of this fertile ground of Mississippi mud and made the Muppets possible. Now, another one of my favorite quotes is from the 19th century French poet Charles Baudelaire, who also kind of looked like New Zealand. But anyway, he said, "Genius is no more than childhood recaptured at will." Now, I got to tell you folks, besides Sir Ken Robinson, there's this other guy named Ken that I really like to pay attention to, and his name is Ken Wilber. You might even say that when it comes to humans, I have a real kinship with Kens. And then again, you might not. Send that note to Fozzie as well. But anyhow, Ken Wilber says that the process of evolution is to transcend and include. Now, what that means is that as we evolve, we don't just become different. We transcend and go beyond who we formerly were by evolving through stages of growth and development, while still including all that we were before. We transcend, but we include. See what I mean? Yeah, it's all still in there. So it turns out that we can look back at the stages of development we've already gone through objectively, sort of our former selves, which means that that sometimes elusive inner child is actually always with us. Now, that can help us recapture childhood. Because when we use our ability to look back objectively as, the fertilizer to make our creative ground even more fertile, well, that's a good thing. And if you're expecting a fertilizer joke, not going to happen. Now, I'd hate for this thing to get bumped off YouTube on a technicality. So, let's take something crazy, like, say, New Zealand's boomerang fish throwing. I mean, You know, that may sound absolutely batty to a trained mind, but to the mind of a child, it can sound wonderful and inviting. Why? Because without fixed ideas, they're open to silliness and crazy next steps. The mind of a child is a beginner's mind. And for them, every idea is fresh and stimulating and leads somewhere special and surprising. Now, I found out a lot more about the beginner's mind when I read about something called Shoshin. Now, at first, of course, I thought Shoshin was some overpriced West Hollywood sushi bar Miss Piggy wanted me to take her to. But that's true, she did make me take her to such a West Hollywood sushi bar. But it turns out that Shoshin is actually a concept in Zen Buddhism, meaning beginner's mind. And beginner's mind is about having sort of an attitude of openness and eagerness and a lack of preconceptions when it comes to studying a subject. As Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki wrote, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. So by approaching a subject the way a beginner or a child would, we start to open up possibilities. And we leave ourselves open to, well, who knows what, right? Yeah. So now, as you know, I've been working with kids for decades. In fact, back in the day, I'm not embarrassed to say I used to run numbers on Sesame Street. And I think what Sir Ken said about kids and creativity is so brilliant. Well, if he weren't already a sir, I'd knight him myself. So here are a few things I've learned from Sir Ken Robinson. And you can sort of think of this as the complete amphibian's guide to Ken Robinson. So here goes. First, we train kids to follow the right way to solve a problem. Now, sure, I want the guy who designed the airplane I'm flying on to have done things the right way. But, you know, there are so many areas of life where there's room to explore and to experiment and to make mistakes. You know what? I don't think I can say this any better than Sir Ken did. So if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to go full Milli Vanilli.
We have to rethink the fundamental principles on which we're educating our children.
There you go. I think I sound a lot like Michael Caine when I do that. Who incidentally told me on the set of Muppet Christmas Carol, never get between the pig and the camera. That's why the man has an Oscar. Anyway, listen, I think what Sir Ken is saying through me is that we need to value all kinds of talent, not just what seems valued to us right now, you know? Because we need to appreciate that things which seem like mistakes today, well, those things could turn out to be tomorrow's innovations, you know? And second, we need to help kids and all of us trying to connect with our inner tadpole to pursue our passion, even when the going gets tough. Now, for grown-ups, that just might mean, folks, you got to have a day job. Because let's face it, it's easier to take creative chances when it's not how you're trying to support yourself. That can be tough. But even when you're working whatever job pays your bills and allows you to go to those expensive sushi bars with the pig of your choice, you can always look for ways to be creative. Whatever you're doing, think outside the box. And if you're like me, you really hate boxes, especially when they forget to punch the air holes in them. I travel cargo. Anyhow, and once you've followed all this advice about passion and perseverance, it's time to seek help. And trust me, you're going to need it. Now, just so you know, I'm not suggesting that any of you should see a shrink. Maybe you should. But what I'm saying is find a mentor, someone who is the perfect mix of fan and critic. You can learn to borrow from them, and you can observe not just how they do what they do, but what they're thinking while they do it. I think that's very important to find out this sort of thing, to learn about their unique interior process and how they go about it. Now, sometimes a mentor is someone who we meet at work, or we might work with that person, and sometimes that person is someone we can't actually work with, but we know by their work. We can read about them and stuff like that, like Einstein or Picasso, you know. But they can still inspire and guide you. And mentors can help us in another great way. They can help us to be aware of what's come before. Now, to be creative, you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you can start with somebody else's wheel and put your own spin on it, you know? Being a part of any creative discipline means knowing what the rules are, even if you have every intention of breaking those rules. That's right. Finally, there's one other thing that I think every frog or person needs to be creative, and that is friends. For me, I think the very best part of creativity is collaborating with friends and colleagues. Now, admittedly, mine happen to be bears and pigs and rats and chickens and penguins, You can go with whatever works for you. But let's face it, none of us really achieves anything absolutely alone. So, as a matter of fact, just my very being here today took a lot of effort by a lot of folks. Why at this very moment, as I speak, someone has a hand in everything I'm doing up here. No. And yes, it's true. Absolutely true. And I'll be the first to admit, it moves me. No. Anyhow, on collaboration, I think Ken Wilber gets right to the heart of the matter. He's created something he calls an integral approach. And here's what he says. He says, I have one major rule. Everybody is right. But more specifically, everybody has some important pieces of the truth, and all of those pieces need to be honored and included. They all need to have a place at the table. Now, that's a great way to live and work, and I know that because it's the way the Muppets have always worked. That way of thinking has taught me that as we go through life, we're sort of piling on deeper and deeper layers of consciousness, which leads to a greater capacity to take multiple perspectives. It's a little bit like the many layers of dessert that are piled on Miss Piggy's plate at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Only with this, there's a lot less carbs and a lot more nutrition. I mean, think about it for a second, everybody. Really think about this. If everybody potentially has some piece of the puzzle to offer you, doesn't it make sense to be open-minded and to have an integral approach? I think it does. And whether you're creating some artistic masterpiece or just a better way to organize your cubicle, being open to many perspectives makes whatever you're doing just more inclusive and whole. And a creative economy grows if all of us share what we know and seek out the wisdom of others. Now, the other Ken, Sir Ken Robinson, put it this way. He says, creativity prospers best under particular conditions, especially when there is a flow of ideas between people who have different sorts of expertise. I actually sort of said something similar at the end of the very first Muppet movie. The big difference was I was wearing cowboy boots. I said, I've got a dream too, and it's about singing and dancing and making people happy. That's the kind of dream that gets better the more people you share it with. And, well, I found a whole bunch of friends who have the same dream, and it kind of makes us a family. And so maybe that's the answer to the first question I asked today. Why are we here? Maybe we're here to encourage each other to share our dreams and to become the best version of ourselves we can possibly be. And maybe we're also here in this universe for the very same reason. You know, the great mathematician and philosopher Alfred North Whitehead, who, by the way, looks absolutely nothing like New Zealand, he said, creativity is an ultimate, which means you have to have it before you can have anything else. Think about that for a while. So maybe the Big Bang was really just the first big creative idea. It got this whole thing going, and now it's our purpose to keep it going, to be ridiculously optimistic about what the future can be. So don't just sit there. Find your mentor. Pay attention to the two Kens. Drop your tail and let's get busy, and thank you for having me here. Thank you all. Thanks, guys. All right, thank you. Thank you.